Okay. Kathy, are we all set? Okay. Okay, I'd like to get started. It's 7:01. I would like to call to order the January 12, 2023 meeting of the Waukegan Planning and Zoning Commission. Can we have a roll call, please?
Anderson? Here. Bill?
Here.
Griffin? Here. Grimes?
Here.
Haug?
Here.
Hintz?
Here.
Rivera?
Here.
Haynes? Here. Rodriguez?
Here. Thank you. We do have a quorum, and I'd like to announce that we do have a new commission member just appointed, starting with tonight's meeting, Ms. Jane Haynes. Welcome. Glad to have you with us. Okay, item 2 on the agenda, setting of the annual meeting schedule. You should all have a schedule in your packets, a proposed schedule of the meetings for the next year, for this year actually, for the whole year. And I hope you've had a chance to look at them. The way that it's looking is that we are not changing the meeting date or time. There was some discussion about that. Some people had questioned whether there might be a better time or day for this, and it seems that the majority of the commissioners seem to agree that this time worked out well for everybody. So what I'd like to do is to ask for a motion to approve the proposed annual meeting schedule.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Grimes.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bill. Any discussion on the motion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Anderson? Yes. Bill?
Yes.
Griffin? Yes. Grimes?
Yes.
Haug?
Yes.
Hintz?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Haynes?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, next item is the minutes. Minutes of the December 8th, 2022 meeting. That was our last meeting. We've approved all the other minutes up to that point, haven't we? I believe yes, okay. Looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Anderson. Any comments, corrections, or changes to the minutes? If none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Griffin? Yes. Bill?
Yes.
Anderson? Yes. Hintz?
Yes.
Haug?
Yes.
Grimes?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Haynes?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Minutes are approved.
Can't do that to old people.
Item 4, audience time. This is an opportunity for anybody here to address the commission. First of all, I want to point out that this is a public hearing, so as we discuss the various items on the agenda, there will be an opportunity for public comment and discussion and question and answers during the time that we are discussing specific items. But this is an opportunity for anybody that wants to address the commission on any item, whether it's on the agenda tonight or not. Okay. Oh, yes. Mr. Bukovic, please come forward. Oh, Miss Hannah. Okay, as you come to the mic, please state your name, and I guess that's it. Just state your name.
Good evening, distinguished committee. My name is Anita Hanna, and I am coming to speak on the agenda item F, 7F. It is really kind of disappointing that this agenda item is here. And I am speaking as a current sitting school board member. And this here is the first time that I have seen anything regarding an educational center on this agenda, as well as multi-purpose training room, and anything regarding a variance for parking. And I am asking the commission to postpone voting on this until there's some kind of clarification with the entire board about this item. And it's a little embarrassing coming here in my position. I know that there's people here from the district, administration from the district here, and it will be whatever narrative it is, but I'm not aware of these things that you all are going to be voting on. And just as the district asked for a postponement, for the voting about the wall, I'm asking for a postponement for this, but I have reasons that I am asking for a postponement on the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Mr. Vukovic?
Hi, good evening. Ray Vukovic, 1703 Hyde Park, Waukegan. I wanted to speak about your new business item 7E, which is the parking issue pertaining to the next item on there, the 7F. But I would ask that you really look at that carefully, because it seems that the solution to the parking issue for 214 Washington Street, if that's allowed, will now create a parking issue, and maybe even a non-compliance issue at 216 Madison Street, where the school district has proposed to lease 47 parking spaces or something like that from that parking garage on the corner of Genesee and Madison Street. That structure only has about 80 spaces. So you're going to have more than, I think it's 46 spaces, I stand corrected. So more than half of their spaces would be leased, and according to the letter of intent from the school district, they would actually entertain leasing more than that. So, you could really create a problem with that building at, that stretches from County Street to Genesee Street. Looking at the 214 Washington, parking is an issue there. And if the solution is you're going to have employees parking a block, actually works out to be a block and a half away, that could be an issue. Then you're going to look at the people who come to use the services there, the parents. Are there going to be sufficient parking spaces on site for them? If not, there are going to be issues with feeding the meter. If they don't feed the meter, they're going to get a $20 parking ticket, and that doesn't serve the public very well either. So I would just ask that you really look at that number 7E as far as that parking requirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vukovic. Anybody else? Okay. Moving on, item 5, informational items. Today we have a presentation, which is an update on the Unified Development Ordinance, presentation by CMAP, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. Who is going to be making that presentation?
That would be me. Hi, good evening. A little awkward. I have to be over here to do the PowerPoint, but good to see you all. My name is Jamie Jackson. I'm a senior planner at the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, also known as CMAP. We are the regional planning agency. Oh, you got, okay. Okay. So I am here to provide an update on the Unified Development Ordinance. This is something that we've been working on for over a year now, and so it's good to see some faces here and update you on where we are at. So next slide, please. So this is our timeline. As you can see, we really kicked off the meeting at the end of 2021. Through that time, we've dived into the many different ordinances that we are pulling together into one unified development ordinance. We are right here right now where my team is currently drafting code, and that is after doing some outreach, talking to the steering committee, and then drafting this recommendations memo, which was included in your packet. And so hopefully you've had plenty of time to read it. I know it's very, very exciting stuff. I love zoning, so exciting for me. And I do want to apologize also for not being able to present that in December, but we are here tonight. So next slide, please. I also want to provide an update on the public outreach. So we have done some public outreach. We had, back in the spring, a community workshop here at City Hall. A colleague of mine went to Scoop to try to just talk to the general public, that anyone that was out and about. We met with the steering committee twice, and then we also did just what we called the ground team. We met at Adam Carson's coffee shop. He is also on the steering committee, and we just went door to door down Grand Avenue and also downtown, meeting with representatives from close to 30 different businesses just to provide awareness of this. Again, zoning is not the sexiest topic, I understand that. So we wanted to just get the word out. What is zoning? How is that going to impact you? How is that going to impact your business? And I think some of the feedback we got was really, really helpful. So our recommendations memo is really just an outline of how we're going to draft this new code. Mostly, we're reorganizing it. We are taking many different ordinances and combining them. We're removing old, dated things that just aren't working, that aren't used, that just aren't practical from a code that was originally written 40 years ago. There are, however, some policy changes that we are also recommending, and we'll walk through those. Our guide for this was also the many plans that you see listed on the right-hand side of the screen, and we're really guided by the most recent plan, which is the comprehensive plan that provides a lot of the policy guidance that we are implementing via the code, or I should say the UDO. So this is our proposed structure of the code. So you'll notice that we have taken these 5 separate ordinances and we've combined them, and this is the structure. So all the different titles, all the different intents and purposes, we've combined those into one section. All the many, many, many different definitions will all be combined into one easy to read, accessible document. Next slide, please. We're also going to infuse a lot of tables and illustrations. The idea is that any person that has a piece of property can pick up this document and understand what they can and cannot do with that property. So the use of tables and illustrations will really help get the ideas across. In addition to that, so I'm going to kind of want to dive into some of the key areas, and I'll go by the section numbers. So section 4.0. This area we're going to talk about how all the different zoning applications are approved. So again, if someone wants to, like for example tonight, a conditional use permit, they will know, okay, I have to apply, and then I'm going to go see the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm going to go to City Council. So it's going to be a very clear process of the notices required and the decision bodies that are going to help determine those applications. Next slide. One of the areas that we want to use more than has been used recently is planned unit developments, or PUDs. So PUDs really allow for more flexibility, and as it's written in the zoning code right now, they're not used in that way. So we are recommending certain triggers that would enhance the use of PUDs to allow for more flexibility. And with that flexibility, for example, if you have a development that is requesting many variances, you can then extract additional public benefit because of those requests for relief. And that benefits the community. So it could be public art, it could be bike lanes, bike racks, many, many things that could benefit the public as a whole through these larger scale developments. One of the big things that Waukegan is dealing with is nonconformities, and then this is especially in the case of minimum lot size. So this map here shows the nonconforming parcels. So these are all the parcels that, according to their zoning districts, are too small. That can be a problem, for example, if someone wants to get financing to purchase a property. Sometimes mortgage lenders feel that that's risky to provide funding to someone that wants to buy a property that is considered non-conforming. So we want to fix that. We're going to add other elements for what triggers compliance for nonconformities, but we're also going to remove an existing area that requires, it's an amortization period. It really actually required that essentially at this date and time, every nonconformity should be compliant. That hasn't happened. It's a very, very heavy burden. So that's one of the areas, again, part of the code, it's not used, it's not enforced, we need to change it. Subdivisions. Waukegan is relatively built out, but there certainly are areas for additional development and subdivisions. So one of the things we're gonna do is try to design better subdivisions when they do come online. This includes making them more walkable and attaching them and connecting them to trails and bikeways and things like that. Another area of the subdivision ordinance is there are 20+ pages of very specific engineering requirements, where fire hydrants need to be, where your lights need to be. Certainly very important for a subdivision, but it doesn't really relate to zoning and land use. So we're going to take that out and put it in a different engineering manual. So then when engineering things change, staff doesn't have to come to you and say, we need to amend the zoning code again because of an engineering change. So we propose to take all of that technical stuff out so the engineers can deal with that separately. So this is where it starts to get real fun. Currently there are 26 zoning districts, including overlay districts. We're going to reduce that to 18, and we'll get into that. We're going to have some design requirements, again, very minimal. We don't want to prohibit any kind of architectural design or creativity, but we do want a minimum of how some buildings should be sited. We are going to revise some of the bulk standards with regard to, again, like I said, minimum lot size. We want to bring lots into conformity. And then we're going to remove FAR requirements. FAR is generally used in very, very dense areas. It's not as applicable in Waukegan, and the same results can be achieved through setback and height requirements. Next slide. So here you'll see our proposed districts. So we propose to consolidate several of the residential districts. You have 11 listed here, and we want to reduce that. The reason is because many of the requirements of these districts, their setbacks, their minimum lot sizes, their uses that are allowed are very, very similar. So there's really not a whole lot of distinction between these districts. So we propose to collapse them. Oh no, my little arrows didn't quite line up. Apologize for that. Similar to the residential, we're going to collapse some of the business and other districts. We want to remove all overlay districts because since we're redoing it, someone shouldn't be looking at the code, understanding what their base zoning is, and then have to look at a whole other set of regulations for an overlay district. So we're going to integrate those overlay districts into the base zoning. This is also an opportunity to implement the lakefront and downtown master plan. So you'll see the new districts. Currently there's the South Lakefront District that was proposed as part of that plan. We'll split up the Marina District, then add the North Lakefront District. And what is currently the Western Gateway Overlay District, where you have the casino, will be a new just entertainment district because it does have very, very specific requirements about what goes there. So uses is another area that we're looking to collapse and simplify. There are 344 separate uses listed in the code. Things as specific as a rope manufacturing place. We don't need to know if someone is going to be manufacturing specifically rope. We understand that that is a light industrial use, potentially a heavier industrial use. But we don't need to list every single possible business that's ever existed in the code. We're going to address all the different principal, accessory, and temporary uses, all your special uses for cannabis, home occupations, things like that, as well as we are proposing adding additional property rights for residential properties through accessory dwelling units. This is a conversation that we did have with the steering committee, and it's a way to add housing diversity. But what we did determine was that the best way to do that in Waukegan was through a detached ADU. So this is just an example of kind of how we looked at the different uses. You'll see that all of these retail goods establishments are very, very specific. We've collapsed them down into one area. People don't really need to have a specific use for a coin in a philatelic store, which is stamps. If you didn't know, I learned that. Next slide, please. So here is our proposed uses for our collapsed residential districts. You'll notice the detached ADUs that we were proposing for these districts, but as far as the other more dense duplexes, townhomes, multi-unit, we're not actually changing or proposing that we move it up in all the single-family areas. The character of these neighborhoods will be the same generally. Again, we are following the comprehensive plan, which actually does recommend that duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, townhomes be permitted in all residential districts. We're taking a little bit more conservative approach to that. Parking, which is a topic of a conversation I know tonight. We are proposing parking maximums. The way that parking has been done historically is that you plan a minimum amount, which is essentially Black Friday. As we know, online retail, things like that, parking demand just isn't what it was before, and we are seeing these very, very large surface parking lots that are very underutilized. So we want to propose a maximum so that we can have the land be used for more productive uses. Signage is a big thing. What we really want to do with this is bring it in compliance. There have been several court cases that we want to make sure that these signs are content neutral. So we will use graphics to show exactly what kind of signs are there. And we will make it compliant with all the legal requirements. And the other thing is that we were looking to phase out billboards. So no new billboards, and hopefully over time some of them will start to come down and improve the appearance of the community. So those are, I know I talked really fast, there's a lot of information there. Hopefully you're able to see it in the recommendations memo. I wanted to just show the schedule once again. My team is busy writing code. We are going to deliver our first module, which is the first 6 sections of the Unified Development Ordinance to staff in a week and a half. And then we'll continue to provide drafts and work with staff to really refine what we've written in that code. Following that, we're going to take it back to the steering committee, and then we'll take it to the public, and then it'll come back to you all. So I'm looking forward to meeting with you all again, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any of the commissioners have any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
where does Fountain Square come into all of this?
Yeah, Fountain Square would be in the proposed entertainment district because it's currently in an overlay zone right now.
Okay.
Commissioner Anderson.
I don't think I asked this question before. We've used overlay districts when we've had new land or, we're developing huge tracts. Can you speak more into your mic? Oh, sorry. Do you want me to repeat the question? Maybe, and speak right into it. Okay, we have used overlay districts when we've been developing something new or redeveloped in a huge tract. Is that going to be used in the future? Or how do you see that happening 20 years from now?
Ideally, you would use the plan unit development tool for these very large sites.
All right, so there would be no overlay districts. It'll all be part of the unified ordinance.
Yeah, and certainly things come up in a larger area that you might need an overlay district in the future. I'm not going to say you're never going to have an overlay district, but at this point in time, we're hoping to remove what's there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners or comments? Commissioner Bill?
The code changes basically, or the zoning changes, would they be prescriptive for the future, or would they be retroactive?
They'd be for the future. So starting, if and when it is adopted, then they would go forward. Anything that doesn't comply with the code, we would be considered legal non-conforming. So we're not going to just say everything is illegal and you have to remove things from your property. Everything can stay. It'll just be a slow change of these non-conforming uses.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Haug?
I just want to applaud you. For one who has to use the code all the time, this is very forward-thinking. I think it's fantastic. Really good job.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I'll see you soon.
Okay, no more informational items on the agenda. Moving on to item 6, old business. Do we have any old business we need to discuss? No. Okay. Moving on to new business. Now, these are going to be the new requests that are coming before the commission. And before we start, I just would like to point out that the matters that we're going to be dealing with are strictly pertaining to planning and zoning. The purpose of the Planning and Zoning Commission is twofold, and that is, first of all, to provide a public hearing so that the petitioners can come before the public and make their presentation and the request, and the public has a chance to weigh in, to make comments, to ask questions, to be involved in the process. And then the second purpose is to make a recommendation to the Community Development Committee, which will consider our recommendation and then move it on to City Council. We do not approve any requests here. All we do is recommend approval. We are not a governing body. We are not a deciding body. We strictly will make a recommendation either to approve or not approve to the Community Development Committee. And that is it. And okay, starting off with the first item. Actually, there are 3 different zoning calendar items, but it's the same project, okay? 7A is zoning calendar 2691, a text amendment to add funeral home with cremation retort to Article 8, Section 8.6-4 of the zoning ordinance as a conditional use in the B5 zoning district. Item B, zoning calendar number 2690, which is a map amendment for 408 North Sheridan Road from R5 limited general residence to B5 general central service. And item C, zoning calendar 2692, which is a request for conditional use permit for funeral home with cremation retort in the B5 central service district at 408 North Sheridan Road. Who is going to be presenting? Just the two of you? Okay, what I'd like to do is to ask you, first of all, we're going to swear you in, okay? If you please both come up to the podium. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Okay, and as you make the presentation, please give your name and your affiliation to the project. And is there a sign-up sheet on the podium? Yes. Do we have it? Okay. I'd like you also at some time during the presentation to put your names in there, and so that we have it for the record, because sometimes it's kind of hard to get the names and the spellings and everything. Okay, so would you please proceed?
Good evening, Commission. I am Dan Patch with Peterson Patch Funeral Home, Waukegan. I've been with the funeral home since 1995 when I started working with my father. Just to give you a little background of the business, Peterson Funeral Home has been in business in the city of Waukegan since 1865, originally starting on Genesee Street in a storefront. We've been at the current location at 408 North Sheridan since 1919, so 100 years at that location. In 2008, my father and I purchased the old Marsh Funeral Home at 1521 Washington Street, which right now I run as the Memorial Chapel of Waukegan. So obviously I'm here serving the city of Waukegan. As you know, funeral trends have changed over the years. Right now, cremation is very large in the funeral industry. Probably about 60% right now for cremation. So we're just trying to keep up with the industry, and we want to have everything in-house, have a retort, which is a crematory at our one location. Right now, all our cremations are sent out to Lake Bluff, Illinois. So we'd like to have everything under one roof and serve this community. And that's where we're at right now. I have Jake, he's with the crematory company, so he would have any technical questions you would have on the operation of it. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jake Pardoon. Like Dan just said, I work for Cremation Systems. We're the company that would supply Dan his cremation equipment. And I'm just here to answer any questions you guys might have about the equipment. I'll start off by saying this. All of our equipment is designed to keep Dan's neighbors and the environment in the forefront of our mind. All of our emissions are on file and approved with the state of Illinois. And again, I'm just here to answer any questions that you guys might have about the equipment. Thank you.
Okay, do any of the commissioners have questions of the petitioners?
I'd like to say something.
Mr. Rivera, please.
I've known Dan's family for a very long time. They've been in this community for a long time and served the needs of this community. And I'd just like to know a little more about the, as far as your license with the EPA, the emissions. Do you have that in process already, or what's the status of that?
Sure. So once everything gets approved, then we would go through ROS, which is the registration of small source in Illinois. And again, all of our information, our emissions are on file and approved by ROS. So we would file the paperwork once everything's approved by the city of Waukegan.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Bill.
I have a technical question as far as your equipment goes. I've dealt with medical waste incineration before and stuff like that. I'm assuming this is a little bit different, but I know they had like 2 or 3 stages of afterburn and everything like that.
That is correct. Yeah, this is a little bit more advanced than that, but we do have a
Okay.
main chamber and an afterburner chamber, and that's
Okay.
just meant to eliminate any emissions, smoke, things like that.
All right, and the EPA basically, in your brochure, it said something about that. You're rated with them, or you're looking for ratings, or?
Yeah, so we've actually been tested through the EPA. The test is called the US Method 9 test, which is a test for visible emissions, and we passed with flying colors. There were no visible emissions that were emitted from our chimney or stack.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Griffin.
I just want to say this to Dan on a personal level. No one could be kinder or more involved in this community than Dan Patch. And I know he would do a wonderful job with whatever he's going to do there. So it's just someone who's done business with him and participated in events that from the city club and everything. So I know he'll do the right thing.
Thank you. Commissioner Hintz.
I'm a neighbor, so happy to have you in the neighborhood as well. But just, could you give me a very layman's description of why it doesn't smell and why there's no smoke, if that's easy to do?
Yeah, of course. So kind of like I described earlier, we have a main chamber, which is where the case or the body goes in, and there's a main burner for that. And then we add residence time by having an additional chamber, which is has an additional burner inside of it, which is going to eliminate any smoke, there is no odor to begin with regardless, but that eliminates any other, emissions, smoke, things like that in that secondary chamber.
And do you have any of your units in other similar residential, because I would call this almost a residential area, even though we're going to maybe change that, but.
Yeah, oh yeah, we have them in residential areas, all over the country.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Yep.
Commissioner Grimes.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that as a member of City Club years ago, I remember Dan too being very active and real. So look forward to this new level of involvement. Like I said, it's really pertinent. People can't afford regular funerals now. It's very significant. It's ridiculously priced of regular. I mean, you have both, but thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah.
Commissioner Haug.
I got a question for staff. Obviously, they're there now under a conditional use agreement. Just by putting a crematorium, it changes that, or why? I guess I don't understand why they're here.
So right now, they're legal non-conforming. They don't have a conditional use permit. It was already something that was here. Because they're adding that extra service, they have to go through this whole process of being conforming with the current zoning ordinance.
Any other questions from commissioners or comments?
I just have a comment. I thought your package was very good. It answered my questions. I don't have any. But it was very thorough. Oh, very thorough. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'd like to ask if there's anybody here in the audience who would like to speak out either in support of or in opposition to this request, or has any? Okay, what I'd like you to do, anybody who's going to speak up or ask a question, I'd like you to stand right now, raise your hand, right hand, and I'll swear you in. Please stand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Okay, let the record reflect that they both said aye. And as you speak, please come up to the podium and give your name and your affiliation to this process.
My name is Vistoria Parker. I have no affiliation to this on the file here, but I just had a question out of curiosity. Would this be the only crematorium in Lake County? Waukegan, sorry. If it's approved?
Can either of you gentlemen answer that?
To my knowledge, yes, this would be the only one in Waukegan, yes.
Only one in Lake County?
No, there are others in Lake County, but this would be the only one in Waukegan.
In Waukegan, okay.
Correct, to my knowledge, yeah.
Thank you. Caroline Wozniak.
I'm Charlotte Callahan Wozniak, and I'm a Waukegan resident, and I look at Peterson Patch Funeral Home every day as I drive through the McDonald's drive-through. My question is, how many cremations are allowed, and how many do you anticipate doing annually?
That's a good question.
I'm sorry. So, I mean, cremations annually, I would think, I mean, at this time, we'll just be servicing our funeral homes. I'm going to say probably around 100, 125 a year.
And then as far as how many are allowed, there is no number on how many are allowed. However, I'll say this. Ross, which I mentioned earlier, registration of small source, applies a maximum limit of 5 tons of particulate matter to be emitted per year. And if Dan was to run the crematory 24/7, 365, which he does not plan to do, but if he even could, he would not come close to coming close to the limit that Ross sets of that 5 tons of particulate matter. So again, at 100 cremations a year, that is not a lot at all. So.
And I'd like to ask that the two committee members that spoke, if you'd please put your name on the list for the record, on that sign-up sheet. Yes, please. Okay, while we're waiting for that, I want to make a comment on the staff presentations on this, because up to this point, we've always had a recommendation, a staff recommendation, either to approve or to not to approve a request. And this is the first time that we are seeing no recommendation. I don't know if any of you noticed that. Okay, and I'd like to ask Mr. Noel Kisher-Lepper to please get up and explain why the change.
Good evening, Commissioners. So you'll also notice that the format of your report has changed. We are trying to make it more readable, easier to access information quickly without having to study the whole thing if you're looking for a particular issue. And I want to separate the staff from the approval. The staff doesn't have the authority to approve these things. You also don't have the authority to approve these things. You are a recommending body. So the staff's role is to review an application and compare it to the city code, and then give you the information about what the city code says, what the application says. So that's not any of our opinions. Sometimes in the past, we've made recommendations to approve or deny that have nothing to do with how we personally feel. They reflect only how the code is applied to that particular issue. And I think that has become confusing for various people when a staff recommendation says, I recommend approval or denial. So to eliminate that confusion, try to make it more factual and clear and easier to access the information, we're changing the report format. I've removed the recommendation piece, and it just says, for example, with a conditional use permit, if you wish to approve this, we recommend the following conditions, which of course you can recommend additional ones. You can recommend that any of those be eliminated or modified, and the council can do the same. Ultimately, it's the ordinance that's approved by the city council that has that authority to impose those things. And I think that the report format might change again before too long. You know, we're playing with it a little bit. As you know, we have some new staff. You'll meet our newest member later this evening. And so we're trying to improve it, use the resources and the skills of the staff and the knowledge that they have from other places. Jamie and her team at CMAP have also provided information for us on best practices for staff reports. So we're just trying to make them better. So I'm completely open to your feedback. Shoot me an email and tell me what you think, what's good, what's bad, what you'd like to see that's missing, any of those things. I'd love to hear from you about it.
Okay, and with that, I would like to ask for the staff report.
Okay, that won't be me. That'll be Isabel.
Thank you very much.
Isabel Guadarrama, planner for the Planning and Zoning Department. So again, this project has 3 applications. First, we will start with the text amendment, which currently funeral homes are only allowed in the B2 and B3 districts. But like it was said, Waukegan doesn't have a cremation service yet. So by adding that into part of the use, funeral home with cremation retort, we would allow the use to be added to this funeral home. So that would be for the text amendment to add to the B5 district. The B5 district is the closest business district that is by this property, 408 North Sheridan Road. So if the text amendment is approved, they would like to continue with the map amendment to rezone to the B5 district. So that way the business stays with the business district and not in the residential district how it is today. Like it was said before, currently it's legal nonconforming. So by adding this use, this extra use to the service, it triggers them to go through the whole process of the Planning Commission going to council. So that would be approving the text amendment from funeral home with cremation retort in the B5 district, Central Service District. If that both are approved, it would move on to the conditional use permit application, which they would like to use this service. And again, as it's stated in the staff report, if this is not approved, they would have to go back to just being a funeral home and having that cremation service somewhere else. Staff does recommend a few conditions if this is approved. This property is currently landmarked by the historical preservation. So if anything changes in the exterior, they would have to go in front of the Waukegan historical preservation and get that approved before making any changes on the outside. Right now, it seems like they're not, but just in case, that is there. We don't have any regulation concerning smoke or smells or anything, so we are leaning towards the IEPA and regulations so that it gets monitored through them. And then we already spoke with the petitioners, but we would like to see a little bit more landscaping in the property. Currently, it does not comply with our landscaping ordinance, so we would like to get them there, and we're willing to work with them. That's about it.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions for city staff? Okay, is there anybody here in the audience that has any questions or comments for city staff? Okay. This time I would like to explain how we're going to vote on this. Even though this was all presented as one project, there are 3 separate zoning items. And so we are going to vote on those separately. And we'll start off with zoning calendar number 2691, which is a request for a text amendment to add funeral home with cremation retort to Article 8, Section 8.6-4 of the zoning ordinance as a conditional use in the B5 zoning district. Do we have a motion to recommend approval or to recommend denial? Commissioner Griffin.
I'll second it.
You, wait, we don't know what the motion is.
Oh.
Commissioner Griffin?
You gotta read the motion.
You are making a motion to recommend approval or denial?
Yes, I recommend approval.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Commissioner Griffin, second by Commissioner Grimes.
Yes.
Any further comment on the motion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Griffin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Hintz?
Yes.
Haug?
Yes.
Grimes?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Haynes?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Next item is zoning calendar number 2690, which is requesting a map amendment for 408 North Sheridan Road from R5 Limited General Residence to B5 Central Service. Do we have a motion?
Recommend for approval, Commissioner.
Commissioner Rivera
Yes.
made a motion to recommend approval. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Hintz. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Griffin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Hintz?
Yes.
Haug?
Yes.
Grimes?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Haynes?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Item zoning calendar 2692, which is a conditional use permit. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. I have a little bit of laryngitis today, but I'm struggling through this. Zoning calendar number 2692, which is a request for a conditional use permit for a funeral home with cremation retort in the B5 Central Service District at 408 North Sheridan Road. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve that?
Motion by Commissioner Bill to approve, second by Commissioner Anderson. Any further discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair, could we just confirm that they're okay with the conditions in that?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. This is the item that has the conditions, okay? I want to ask the petitioners, have you had a chance to review those conditions that were recommended by city staff?
Yes.
Okay, don't go away. And do you feel that you are going to be able to comply with the conditions that are suggested?
Yes.
Okay. What I'd like to do then is, who made the motion on it?
I did.
Oh, Commissioner Bill. Would you like to restate your motion to include the conditions that are recommended by city staff?
I would like to make that recommendation that it is approved with the conditions that were stated.
Thank you. And the second was?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson, and you are seconding that revised motion?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion on the motion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Griffin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Hintz?
Yes.
Haug?
Yes.
Grimes?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Haynes?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Congratulations. Good luck with your project. And the next step is going to be Monday, February 6th, in this room at approximately 5 p.m. You will meet with the Community Development Committee. Okay? Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.
All right, next item. Item D, zoning calendar number 2693, is a request for a conditional use permit for a tattoo studio with at least 40% floor space dedicated to non-tattoo related art gallery at 316 North Genesee Street in the B5 Central Service District. Who is going to be presenting on this? Are you the only one that's going to be speaking on this?
My husband, but he doesn't want to stand up.
He doesn't want to. Okay, he's got more important things to do right now. Okay, what I'd like to do is to swear you in. Would you please raise your right hand?
Yes.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, please proceed. State your name and your affiliation to the project, please.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, please state your name
Jennifer Moya,
and your affiliation with the project.
tattoo.
No, what is your relationship to this project?
I'm his wife.
You're his wife, and he is the one that is going to be running the business, is that it?
Yes.
And what is his name?
Miguel Negron.
Miguel Negron. Okay, you were on the document here. Okay, please present to us what you are planning to do there.
He's planning to open a tattoo business.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, by appointment. So. By appointment and yeah.
Okay.
Yes, he wants to open the tattoo business, so people can get the chance to get a tattoo, a professional tattoo. Hi. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Do you feel more comfortable speaking in Spanish?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, because if you'd like, are you
Or he
prepared to
can
translate?
help me out. That's fine.
I can help with this.
You're going to help her translate?
Yeah, I helped him with the application. So.
Okay.
Oh no, not translate. I was just gonna.
Oh, you're just actually going to,
I was gonna present the.
if you would, please.
Yeah, of course.
We need somebody to present.
Yeah, you can sit down. It doesn't
Yes.
matter. Yeah, so we have the petitioner here, Miguel Negron. He is proposing to open a tattoo parlor, studio, and as it is set in the zoning ordinance now, the only tattoo studios that are allowed have to have 40% art gallery. So that is why it's presented that way in the agenda. And he's proposing 316 Genesee, which is right next to the post office, right next to China Garden for Chinese lovers out there. So it's probably going in the next space next to China Garden that's actually vacant right now. And like he said, it's going to be by appointment only. It's a very small business. He's actually going to be the only employee to start off. There's a site plan attached to the application that shows basically the floor layout, and it shows art gallery in the front with a couple stations. He's maybe have another tattoo person come in, but he's going to be the only one doing the art as well. So it's a very small business. He's probably going to be the only one there most of the time. Not going to take up a lot of parking. I know it's not a big parking lot. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I can go through the recommendations as well, since I'm
Okay,
up
well,
here.
let's just
Yeah.
take this as the petitioner's presentation first, okay?
Sure.
And I'd like to ask if any of the commissioners have any questions of the petitioners. Commissioner Bill?
The 40% that's non-tattoo art, I don't know if we can dictate what it is, but do we have any idea of what it's going to be? Local art, art for sale?
Yes, it's going to be art for sale, his art for sale drawings, pretty much kind of similar to tattoos, just not tattoos. They're going to be drawings, portraits, hanging on the wall. And yeah, people that come in for tattoos, they have the option to buy them. But it's not going to be like a big operation, so to say, where people are coming in to sell their art. It's just going to be his art mainly.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner?
Obviously, the tattoo artists, they're licensed and.
Right, yeah, that's,
Could you,
yes, sir.
Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's laid out in the conditions as well. Yeah, the Illinois Department of Health, they actually call it the body art permit and body art establishments license. And yes, that's something we require, that he has all proper requirements through the state.
Anybody else? Okay, at this point, I would like to ask if there's anybody here in the audience who would like to either speak out either in support of or opposition to this request, or has any questions about it. If not, I'd like to ask for the city's position on this.
Yes, of course. Well, I kind of spoke of the main one was the to make sure that he had the Illinois Department of Health body art permit and follow the rules and regulations for all body art establishments. And then number 7 at the end, the petitioner must dedicate 40% of floor space to non-tattoo related art, which is, again, something that's mandated through the zoning ordinance. And the rest of the conditions, as you see, are pretty standard throughout the rest of the conditional applications that you guys review. Like I said, it's kind of a basic operation that is pretty standard and small. So, any questions?
Were there any conditions?
Yes, the conditions are just that he has to follow with the Illinois Department of Health body art establishments and get his a license, and then the condition about the 40% floor space regulated to art. Those are the main conditions.
And these are pretty standard conditions.
Yes, the rest of them are pretty standard throughout the rest of the applications.
And let me just ask the petitioner, are you familiar with the conditions that the city is recommending? Yes. Can you please come up to the microphone?
He is familiar with the regulations.
Okay, and you feel that you and Mr. Negron are going to be able to live up to the conditions that are being recommended by the city?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'd like to ask if anybody here has any questions for city staff. Okay, if not.
Mr. Chair, could I ask one? to
Yes,
staff?
Commissioner
So,
Higgins.
just so I understand, the 40% requirement is dictated by the city zoning, is that right?
Yes.
Is that driven by the district it's in, or it's for any tattoo parlor, period?
No, that's across any district in Waukegan, yes.
Okay, that feels restrictive to me just personally, but that's,
Yeah, it's laid out through the zoning ordinance, any
Okay.
tattoo throughout Waukegan.
Anything else? Okay, in this case, I'd like to ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would motion to recommend approval for zoning calendar 2693, a conditional use permit for a tattoo studio with at least 40% floor space dedicated to non-tattoo regulated art at 316 Genesee in the B5 Central District.
Subject to the conditions?
Thank you. Subject to the conditions as listed.
Okay, that he has a
Second.
motion on the floor. Second by Commissioner Rivera. Do we have any further discussion on this motion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Griffin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Hintz?
Yes.
Haug?
Yes.
Grimes?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Haynes?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Congratulations, good luck with your project. Next step is going to be meeting with the Community Development Committee Monday, February 5th at approximately 5 p.m. in this room. And from there, it'll go to City Council. Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next item, there are 2 zoning calendar items that deal with the same project. And they are item E, zoning calendar number 2694, which is a request for a variance for parking requirement for a proposed school administration building, educational services center, wraparound center, and multipurpose training Meeting Room at 214 West Washington Street in the downtown Lakefront Overlay District. And item F, which is zoning calendar number 2695, which is a request for a conditional use permit for a proposed school administration building, education services center, wraparound center, and multipurpose training meeting room at 214 West Washington Street in the downtown Lakefront Overlay District. Who is going to be presenting?
Mr. Chairman, I have to,
Yes, sir.
I have to recuse myself. I'm the community liaison for school partnerships for this.
Okay,
Waukegan
thank you,
School
Mr. Grimes. Okay, so everybody who is going to be speaking on this, I'd like you to come forward. I will swear you in. Please raise your right hand. There we go, now I can see you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, please let the record note that all four swore yes in the affirmative. Okay, what I'd like to ask you is for you to, as you begin to speak, give your name and your affiliation to the project, and also, if you can, please write your names on the list, on the sheet that we have there, so we have it for the record. Okay? Mr. Moten.
Thank you. Good evening, commission members and community members. My name is LeBaron Moten. I am Deputy Superintendent for Waukegan School District. And I have with me this evening Mr. Tim Briner. He's Director of Logistics and Compliance with the school district, as well as Mike Eichhorn and Justin Wendt, who is with Wold Architects. They are one of the architects of record with the school district.
Okay. I'm assuming there's more to your presentation?
Yes, sir. I didn't. Thank you for that prompt. So thank you for having us this evening. The school district is here this evening because of the property located at 214 West Washington Street. This is a property the district acquired in the fall of 2019. It has been, due to COVID and the pandemic and the fact that we were all remote, the district has not moved forward with any plans for that property. However, in April of 2022, we did bring forward a proposal to the Board of Education that they ultimately approved to relocate offices from our current location, which is at Lincoln Center, 1201 North Sheridan Road, and also to open a wraparound center to support services for students and family as well as Waukegan community members based on a program that we saw with some board members, administration at the Peoria Public School District. Really a one-stop shop approach for community members and again, parents and students to come in and get social services they need, whether it's substance abuse counseling, mental health services, et cetera. This is an ideal location for the service. It's centrally located, and currently the district does not have any locations throughout the district that could house such a program. So we're here for you this evening to let you know and to ask and obviously provide feedback and answer any questions you may have regarding the property downtown and its intended use. We have been in communication with Monami Realty, the property located at 219 West Madison Street, regarding the parking requirements which are stipulated in the variance application based on the intended use of the property, which would be office space as well as some potential multi-purpose training, Board of Education meetings, et cetera, that could be taking place during the day or in the evening time. Based on the requirements that were provided to us and the parking locations that are currently on the property and the parking locations at the parking garage at 219 West Madison Street, we believe we've met those requirements, and obviously excited to continue with our design plans and hopefully move in, which is anticipated at this time based on previous presentations back in April, in August of 2023. And again, we have Mr. Briner here as well as our architect of record if there are any specific questions that you have on the two items. Thank you.
Thank you. Any of the commissioners have questions of the petitioners?
I don't know, how much communication have you had with the city of Waukegan? With the city staff here?
Yes, thank you for asking that question. So we have met with the planning and zoning staff. We have met with building commissioner, Waukegan Fire Department, Waukegan Police Department. Again, going back to April of 2022, we did present a plan and proposal which was ultimately approved by our Board of Education, and we've been in communication with those offices since that time. But the district did not proceed with design of the property until after the Board of Education provided that approval. So this past fall, I would say going back to October of 2022, particularly once we knew that this was a requirement to occupy the property for its intended use, we've been in communications with those various city departments.
Commissioner Anderson.
How many staff do you anticipate being residing in this facility?
Sure. Thank you. So we have full-time staff, 12-month staff that would have a permanent location here, and also itinerant and 10-month staff. Itinerant staff we would define as individuals that would have a workspace in this location, but a majority of their time, 4 days a week or 80% of their day throughout the week, would be at school buildings throughout the district, so they wouldn't necessarily be there their full work day. But based on designs, approximately 100 individuals throughout the day within this location. But again, that would be full-time, where they would be there full-time during the day, Monday through Friday, and then that would include itinerant staff that would be in and out throughout the day or would be in school buildings some days of the week in this location, other days of the week.
But 100 per day, essentially our staff. And so how many spaces are you thinking you will need for people coming in on a daily basis, those 5 days a week?
Sure. So that is a number that is not as clearly defined at this time. The wraparound center does have 7 suites located in it, so we would anticipate 7 service providers would occupy those spaces at all times. Based on appointment only and having visitors and itinerant staff park at the building, with full-time staff that would spend most of their day in the building parked at the off-site location. As far as, so we're working with our architects on that right now, but it would really be dependent on the 7 suites and the lower level being fully occupied throughout the course of the year.
And then based on those suites being occupied, projecting number of visits per day and parking and overlap and all of that.
Yes, ma'am. And I do want to remind or inform the commission that this is a first for Waukegan School District. The Illinois Criminal Justice Authority did provide a grant for annual operation of this location within Waukegan. There are 4 locations that were provided this grant this year, or in 2022 through the end of the 2023 year, but it is an indefinite grant as long as this location is open. So obviously we're using Peoria as a guide. We are going to grow and develop as we host this center gradually to ensure that we are compliant with what the commission recommends, and also to ensure that we can have a successful center at this location, logistically as well as support.
Well, having certainly parking downtown between 8 and 5 is always an issue because people want to park right where they're going, right in front of where they're going. And this is not a community that has a walking culture, having worked downtown. So I just think that it's going to be really important to have a backup plan if in fact you find that you're going to need more than it looks like 111 parking spaces. Because other businesses downtown are going to start complaining too, if you don't. So I think it's critical that there's some sort of backup plan here if more spaces are used. 100 people a day permanently doesn't give you much leeway. And I'm assuming most of those people drive currently either at the Welcome Center or at the school administration building. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. And 100 people a day, some would be in and out,
Yeah.
but
So you've got only 11 spaces that you're talking about as leeway.
And that is based on our preliminary design that is, I believe there's some information in your packets, but 100% final will be within the next few days, but yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Haug?
I have a question about the parking garage that's currently downtown. I believe that's allocated for jurors. I don't think that that would be available space for the school district.
Be the staff.
So,
Staff answer that question?
Good evening, Commissioners, and welcome, Commissioner Haynes. My name is Thomas Maylard, Planning and Zoning. To answer your question, this is different from the county's parking lot. We were talking about 214 Madison. So the Madison lot that is on that cross street about a block away, not the county's garage on County Street.
Well, I already heard someone say that it's the county garage.
It would not be the county garage, and I'm happy to answer, or when we get to the staff time, answer the concern related to the multiple tenant use of 214, or I can answer now, whatever the commission prefers. All right, so to answer the question about multiple tenants using it, being that there is no current use of that 214 lot, any additional use of that lot or property that is contingent upon that would have to provide verification that there is sufficient parking for the use, the shared use of that lot. So at this time, this does show, or this agreement is for the use of a lot that has not been otherwise spoken for.
Well, believe me, the administrators aren't going anywhere. They're going to be parked there.
Sure.
So where if someone else wants to come in and open a business, where are they going to park?
There, and again, based on the proposed, there is no proposal for the use of that parking lot. So, certainly to your question, that we understand that may be a determination of the commissioners based on the information that we've been provided. That is, the Monami folks have, are offering that space without a alternative use of that parking lot.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a couple?
Yes, Commissioner Hintz.
So I guess I'm a little bit concerned about parking in downtown too, and maybe not short term, but longer term, and that probably links to my second question, which is, if we are focused on growing the downtown, and that's in a long-term master plan, help me get to why this fits kind of in that location downtown, both from a parking standpoint and just with what potential growth there could be there. Why do you fit there?
So this location, there would definitely be a lot of individuals in downtown Waukegan. This property, again, as I said earlier, 2019 is when we acquired it, and it has sat empty for about 3 years or since that time. But we work a lot with the city services currently. Fire department, police department, Waukegan Development. We do have a partnership with CLC, particularly the downtown campus with Mr. Ruiz. So we are trying to bring some of those services downtown, whether it be through our staff, it would be direct access for our parents and students. We know a lot of them already go down to that downtown location at CLC. And then the wraparound service center would bring other services downtown where individuals could come park, or if they rode the PACE bus, they could park there and walk. We have hosted some events, zombie walk and things like that at the parking lot at this location over the years. So again, it would bring individuals downtown. We would not fully vacate, and I should have said this earlier, we will not fully vacate 1201 North Sheridan Road. We will partially vacate 1201 North Sheridan Road. That location will still host some trainings, some district departments. we're not shifting 100% of the staff. There would just be a percentage of the staff coming to this location.
So I think what you're saying is you're helping downtown by bringing people downtown. Is that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that part of what you said?
Well, part of it, and more direct access to, again, some of the other city services that we already partner with and we speak with on a regular basis.
Okay. Second question, I guess, then, is it's a little frustrating as a citizen to have school board member come and express concern when you're talking to us about something and asking us for a recommendation of approval, I guess. So I just want to give you a chance to respond to that, I guess. Like, as a citizen, as a taxpayer, why can you not get alignment within yourself, and why would that give me confidence that this project should go forward?
Sure. I believe the only thing I could say to that, sir, is that the Board of Education did approve the district and the administration to proceed with design and implementation of this project. At that point in time, we did ask our architects to proceed with design, and this is part of the process for implementation. No contracts have been awarded to contractors to do the work, but the design and making sure that we can actually occupy the space for its intended use, which we did present to the public back in April of 2022. It's the same use. It is on the district website, the link to the presentations and videos. The conditional use permit application was also presented at a public meeting in October of 2022. So that would be my response to that. As it relates to the communication, and we also had Senator Johnson and State Representative Mayfield at the presentation, as well as Ms. Mayfield was instrumental in helping secure some of the grant funding to not just renovate the space, but also the annual operating budget to have the support services that will be in the wraparound center.
Thank you for that. Still, just from a comment standpoint, it's still a little frustrating, I guess, as a citizen, but I think it's a pretty good answer, so thank you.
And Commissioner Haug.
Are you going to have board meetings at this location, I assume?
Yes, that is the intention, sir. So Board of Education meetings, I believe in the packet it's referred to as a multi-purpose room, but similar to the board meetings at 1201 North Sheridan Road, would be proposed as an option to have here based on designs.
I can just speak because I'm your neighbor. I'm directly north of your place on Sheridan Road, so I know how packed that parking lot is when you have a big board meeting. So I guess I share everybody else's concern about, you know, the potential of having something like that downtown and people willing to walk that distance to go to a board meeting.
Thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
Well, I'm really interested in activating that space downtown. I mean, we need to have something there. I think having an educational complex with COC, with the school board, or I mean with the schools, all of that is to the community's advantage. The wraparound center sounds like a fantastic, and so I go back to what are the other plans in case you need more parking, in case you need more than 111 spaces. At night, downtown is pretty empty, but not when the Genesee is doing something. So, you know, parking is an issue. I think being close to public transportation is great, but I do have that concern. I don't know if it overweighs getting the space activated, because we need businesses downtown. This is going to bring more than 100 people downtown every day. We need that. But not at the expense of not having planned how we're going to deal with parking. So I guess that's my comment here.
Anything else from commissioners? And Mr. Moten, just to clarify, what you are doing now, with the request you're making and the whole project was approved by the Board of Education?
To proceed with design and implementation was approved by the Board of Education. The scope of this work has not changed. The district believes it's within the authority of the superintendent to sign and submit this application. It does not appear, and we were not informed of any fiscal authority being granted or any fiscal impact or expenditure with this application. However, as part of the implementation that was approved in April of 2022, as this being a step to implement and occupy the location, that has been reviewed, informed, and that is based on recommendations of our legal counsel, that the superintendent has the authority to submit this application as presented this evening.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, at this point, I'd like to ask if there's anybody else here who would like to speak out either in support of or opposition to this request. Please, there are 2, 3 individuals. Okay, what I'd like to do is to swear you all in right now. Please stand. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth? Okay, please let the record note that all 3 answered in the affirmative. And what I'd like to ask is for you to come up to the podium one at a time. And as you speak, please give your name. Even though we may know who you are, please give your name and your affiliation to this project. And also sign the sheet that's on the podium.
Actually, the first time I've come to your meeting is very interesting. I'm Tom Capine. I have Capine Studio. We've been here 5 years on 122 Washington. Yes, it will affect our parking for sure, but you can solve the problem because you have 2 parking lots, I believe, if you have obtained the old bank and the parking lot that's currently used for the Carnegie. I think if you make that, clean it up, make it nice, and make it an invite place for this, everybody can be happy. But right now, we're only 5 parking spaces away from your building, from this building. More importantly to me, though, is I came here with the idea, under the understanding that downtown was becoming an art district, and that's what brought us here. A lot of wonderful things were happening here. A lot of them have eroded because of lack of maintenance of the idea, not necessarily of the idea itself. We welcome you, CLC. They've done a great job, and they've done a lot of things for the arts, and they continue to do that. What I want to see is a commitment by the school district to make at least the front of that building look like what we are asking for in a conforming to an art thing. You could have, the school district could have student exhibitions in the windows, a lot in an area within there that makes this feel like a city that really respects the arts, which it has been and has the potential to. So I'm asking for is the city to look at the parking issue as one that you can actually solve, and the district to recognize the arts as a part of what's downtown and make it happen.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Good evening. My name is Christine Lensing. My affiliation is just a parent within the school district. Some of my main concerns is that a lot of what was presented was more mental health services or physical health services. So I would like more details around what exact educational services will be provided at this location, what percentage, if we want to go that route. Is it a majority of additional services? Is it partially academic? Maybe there's 10% of tutoring going on in there, but more the administrative side. I'd also like from the board, and maybe, again, this is also my first time here, so if it's more appropriate of a question for you, but the timing guidelines of what it would take from getting it to start to finish. Because from my understanding at the board meetings, we don't have all of the funds secured for this location, so it seems a bit much to be putting the cart before the horse to get parking zoning and those reserved if other businesses are concerned about public use for them.
Thank you. Do the petitioners want to respond to the comments or questions? There's a question about what the services would be, percentages of different services. I think that was what you were asking?
Yes.
Thank you for both of the comments, particularly regarding the arts, as well as the percentage of services. So there will be no educational services at this location. This is not a school location. This will be an administrative office location with a wraparound center. The wraparound center and the location that's presented in the floor plans, which would be on the lower level, would be 100% support services. So that would be juvenile justice services, substance abuse counseling, mental health support. Those would be the types of services provided there. So those would be 100% in that location, but there wouldn't be any tutoring or instruction happening at this location for students of the school district. It would be support services within the wraparound center, and that would be separate from the day-to-day operations throughout the rest of the building for the district staff.
Does that answer your question?
No, it does not. Sorry. The reason I bring up this question is because in the calendar amendment that we're talking about, it specifically says educational services. And you just confirmed that there's no educational services going on. So I'm confused as to why that's included.
So I believe what may be being referenced is we're planning to call it the Waukegan Educational Services Center. Not that there would be any instruction taking place. So apologies if that was confusing.
Okay, Ms. Hannah?
Hello again. Everything that was said tonight, that was presented tonight, it's kind of new information. There was a presentation, but there was nothing ever voted on to move this thing forward. We have not even secured or had a report or anything regarding the funding source for this entire project, except the wraparound center that they're planning to put in the basement of the 214 Washington Street. And that's my concern, that it's kind of being piecemealed. And as was said earlier about the cart coming before the horse, and I just think that there needs to be a little bit more clarification, not by this commission. I think it's a little premature that the commission has been put in this position before everything has been solidified at the school district with the school board. Presentation was done, but I don't remember us taking a vote for anything. To get the plans, the architect to come in and to look, that's about it, okay? The biggest thing, no funding source for this project for 214 Washington Street has been identified to the Board of Education, aside from the $2.5 million for the wraparound center only. So please consider just holding off on doing any recommendation or anything until the Board of Education can hear everything that was said to you all tonight. All those details, first time I've heard them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Would the petitioners like to respond?
Thank you. Thank you for the comments, Ms. Hannah. I would just like to reiterate what was stated earlier. The design and the implementation for this location was approved in April of 2022 by the Board of Education. The district believes that this is part of the implementation plan. So we can occupy the building for the intended use that was presented this evening, which matches what was presented previously in April of 2022. We do believe this is a necessary step as we've had communications over the last several months with the Planning and Zoning Department in order for us to proceed with occupying as and implementing the plan that was presented. And prior to our architects of record finalizing details and issuing bid specifications for interior renovations based on its use as opposed to doing this after that work has been completed. Thank you.
Chair?
Yes.
Can I make a clarification?
Sure.
In terms of what another board has approved or has not approved and the funding sources behind this particular project, I want to remind, to the extent that this commission needs reminding, that our standards, which are set forth in section 3.11-7, are very specific as to what this commission can consider. And so there is, for instance, the operation of this use, whether it'll be detrimental to or endanger morals, comfort, general welfare. I'm not going to read them all. Whether it's injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the vicinity. None of these, and I look to make sure none of these really have much to do with it, whether or not there's money behind this and whether or not this has jumped through the particular hoops as required by a different board. That would be beyond our consideration.
Thank you. And I was going to ask you for clarification on that. Thank you. Okay, where do we stand now? We had the community members make their comments.
City.
Are there any other comments, questions?
What the city has to say.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah.
Do we have any other comments, questions from the commissioners before we go to the city? Yes, Commissioner Haynes.
I'd like to ask if the current parking plan is the only one that was investigated, or if there were other parking options, such as this gentleman who owns a store in the neighborhood has stated. Are there other options that were looked at and determined not to be worthwhile?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So there was another option. The other option was to partner with the city with those locations, but those were not in a centralized location like this parking garage. So that could potentially be a secondary option if there was a concern here, but we did want to make an attempt to have all the parking spaces that this location would need, the overage and parking spaces that aren't directly on the surface lot at the property, in one location. And I would like to inform the commission, we do know that parking and traffic downtown is of the utmost importance. The district does not intend to occupy 100% of the property all at once. We do understand this is a new venture for us as well as far as this type of facility downtown. We'd be phasing in individuals, wraparound center, certain departments over time, not a long period of time, not years, but over time, so we can assess the day-to-day and making sure with our partnership with the city and the planning and zoning team that we are being responsive and supportive and not putting anybody in a situation where it could be detrimental for any other local business or our own day-to-day operations.
Also, I wanted to ask, I know Teddy was saying that there were 111 spaces, and I'm reading this and it says 139 plus 64 off-street. What is the actual number of spaces?
So there are currently 64 spaces on the property. So the 111 spaces came from 80% of the 139 as a requirement, we believe, an article of the ordinance. So we're requesting that the 80% be honored. 64 would be on the property, and then the additional spaces would be at the parking garage at 219 West Madison.
And is there any data available at this point that shows that you've investigated or the city can provide as to what the current occupancy level of that garage is on a regular basis? To know if there are extra spaces on a daily basis?
Just for clarification, ma'am, are you asking what is the current use versus the max capacity?
Right, so the concern is that if you take a large portion of the spaces in that garage, and there are other businesses who would like to use that space, is that space currently going unused right now? And this therefore would be a useful enhancement to that parking garage? Or are you potentially infringing on the ability for that space to be used because that garage is already at 3/4 capacity and you're gonna take half of it? Or whatever the details are in those numbers.
So what we would be doing is, we would not be directing staff simply to park there. We are exploring a lease, an exclusive lease for approximately half the spaces at that property, a little over half the spaces at that property. On a day-to-day basis, what they've informed us of is anywhere between 11 to 13 cars currently parking there, which is why we saw it as a potential option for this, and getting 40, I believe is 47 spots within one location. So based on the current use, we don't believe that to be a concern. But again, it would be a proposed lease for that location for the school district for approximately half of the spots, or one level of that current parking structure that is not being utilized on a day-to-day basis.
And those spots would be then considered reserved and not available, even when they're not being used by the school district? Because you have a lease for them and you potentially could be using them.
So some of those finite details are still being discussed with the intent of the lease agreement with the Monami Realty. But the use of our location, there could be some evening uses. So we're working out those details, but we want to make sure that we have adequate parking for any event, whether it's day-to-day board meetings, as one of the commission members mentioned that we have. But we're working out those details. We just want to make sure that we do not run out of parking in the surface lot for any function we may have.
Okay.
Commissioner Griffin.
I have a question. If this has not been through the school board, who is pushing it forward now? I mean, what is the reason it's here? The funding isn't here. The board evidently hasn't okayed it and move it here. I don't understand this. It seems like, you know, you're not ready to be here, and maybe we should hold it over.
So all I can say is this is the district, the Waukegan School District, bringing this conditional use application permit forward.
Who's the school district?
School district would be the Board of Education and Superintendent of Schools.
Which they don't know anything about it.
So again, I just want to reiterate for the commission that the Board of Education has taken action on schematic design, architectural plans, and implementation plans to occupy this property based on a timeline presented and the use that's been presented to you this evening.
It seems as though this is one step in a process. And if it's a no-go, if city council, because ultimately they're the deciders, would say, we are not going to let you have a conditional use permit or a variance for parking, I'm sorry, a variance for parking. So, and as the lawyer stated, there are specific things that we are supposed to be looking at, and they're identified on page 2 of both of our reports. So it is not based on perception of whether or not this has gone through some process. It is really, are we going to approve a variance in parking requirements? And are we going to give a conditional use permit for a wraparound center or a training meeting room that would be in this building? So, you know, I understand Ms. Hannah's question and request, but I also feel like what's before us is, will we do a variance on parking spaces? And we all know parking's an issue. I think that's really the question, not whether or not there's money here. That's not even part of this presentation. So I think, we need to go back to what is the question we're being asked, which is, will we provide a variance on parking regulations? I'm interested in hearing the staff have been looking at this a lot longer than us. I'm interested in hearing what they have to say.
Okay, there are actually two items. One is for the parking and one is for the proposed use of the building. We have another board member here, member of the Board of Education, who has her hand up. She's had it up for a while now and would like to speak, Ms. Charlotte Callahan-Wozniak. And I'd like you to be able to speak. Please come up to the podium, and I'm going to swear you in. Oh, were you already sworn in?
Yeah, we swore you in.
Okay, then you don't need to be sworn in again. You're still under oath.
I am Charlotte Callahan-Wozniak. I'm also on the school board. We did, all due respect, Anita, we did approve to move forward these issues.
Ms. Hannah, please, let her speak. You had your chance.
As Mr. Moten stated multiple times, the school board did approve going forward with a wraparound center and our plan as linked in our website. And what can I say? It's there, and we've approved it. One of the steps we have to go through is to fix our parking issue, and that's why we're here today.
Thank you. Ms. Hannah, go ahead. Please come up to the podium.
As Ms. Wozniak said, we voted for the architect to design. That's it. Okay, and other than that, and the wraparound center, which is only actually a fourth of the project that they're really talking about.
Okay, Ms. Hannah, this is the Planning and Zoning Commission, okay? So the items that we're dealing with are strictly related to planning and zoning, okay? Okay. At this point, I would like to ask city staff to give us their position on this.
Good evening, Commissioners and members of the public. Thank you for your time and consideration. So before, I want to clarify just a few points. First of all, for clarity's sake, the addresses were 214 West Washington and 216 West Madison. I had that Madison address incorrect, but I wanted to set that correct. To the neighboring property owners' concern or consideration of the site of the 1 South Genesee Bank building that the city has been in the process of acquiring, that is considered a development site. That is anticipated to be developed the moment that is entirely in the city's possession, and therefore we do not deem that to be any solution for various current users of the downtown's long-term parking needs. Same applies to the Lot D, the one behind Sheridan and Clayton. The conversations with the school district related to other parking options mainly entailed the possible sale of monthly passes, which would direct staff, or the administrative personnel for the school district to the city's parking garage at Clayton and in county. So a bit further and maybe a bit less practical in our estimation. I will, and I'll jump into the conditional use permit for just some clarity to give some full understanding of the process and what we reviewed here. So what was obviously proposed here was a combination of moving the operations that are currently held in Sheridan, at the Sheridan site, along with this very progressive model that is being implemented in other parts of the state or we believe successfully for the community services. Those addiction services, those other services, when already accounting for a property that is no longer on the tax rolls, I think, and again, that's not a zoning question, but for staff's consideration and economic development, that is certainly extra bang for the buck or less loss if that is going to be existing in the downtown. In terms of the CUP process, the CUP would be only valid for 1 year, so if there was not approval by the board, and again, that's a separate question from zoning, regardless, any CUP expires after 1 year, and so for just context, these are not infinite approvals. The site that is being proposed is the former bank site. Additionally, the parking at 216 was accommodating another bank which has recently closed. As we know, online banking and the prevalence of that has made the necessity of physical banks less ongoing. And so I think that vacancy is a calculation that staff has considered. The site, in addition to the administrative personnel moving there, HR, superintendent, was also discussed to hold the training center, the multi-purpose room, the boardroom, for lack of a better term, for school board meetings. And then additionally, the conversation related to the wraparound services. And from a parking consideration and the tables, that best is probably categorized as medical dental offices, being that it's an appointment-based service. When we're calculating parking, we obviously have to consider the use of the site. If every use is ongoing to 100% capacity at the exact same time. But from a practical nature, I think even just the frequency of board meetings, we understand that there is not a board meeting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 8 to 5. We know that those uses may not require the entirety of the parking needs. However, as was noted, there is on-site parking that we do not find sufficient for the parking calculation. That parking calculation on the site is 66 actual parking spots. With our updated landscaping and parking rules, they need to add 2 additional islands, which is a condition that staff, of course, has requested. In attempting to solve the additional parking needs, the applicant had provided the confines or the context of a lease for the 216 West Madison, and it had been relayed to us that primarily staff would be using that as to encourage those parents, students, and the infrequent users that may be less familiar with the site, that they would be using the most proximate parking to the building. And additionally, we have, of course, stressed the need for clear signage at both sites to make that helpful and clear for the public. I'm just trying to work through the rest of this. As to the question about educational services and that definition, that is a very broad zoning category, which includes, it can include educational services, but doesn't necessarily have to. It can include mentoring, but it doesn't necessarily have to. However, it also can include after-school services like these wraparound support services. And so, again, for trying to give the fullest and most transparent definition to the public and to the commissioners, that's why that has been listed in those 3 listed uses. Jumping over to the list of conditions on the site. We had, of course, highlighted some of our standard conditions, but some of those include requiring that the tenants of the wraparound services that they provide they get licenses with the city, so as we are aware of who is there. Any nonprofit, it gets a waiver. There's no profit sought from that. New signage have to go through our sign permits with the building department. Certainly, building and fire department have done a walkthrough of some of the building, and they would have to get approval from those folks in order to be occupiable. We mentioned, obviously, in condition 5, the parking requirements of the additional landscape islands. In order to not drive additional impact on the neighborhood, there was a request by the administration and the staff that there are not, for lack of a better term, resource giveaways. Food drives, clothing drives that would force or lead to excessive lines, traffic backups on Washington that would not lead to additional traffic impacts beyond the already multiple uses that are here. Instead, we of course request and recommend that the school district push some of those efforts to their school buildings that maybe have better circulation. Yeah, and any questions to some of those? I know that's a mouthful. Any questions to some of those points?
Mr. Chair, I got a couple questions. But related to the parking ordinance specifically, so I think I heard you say and I assume it's the lot that would be just south of that is something the city's trying to acquire and develop. Is that what I heard you say?
There's between Genesee and Sheridan on the south side of Madison, the city owns 90% of that city block. And approximately a year and a half ago, I would say, if memory serves right, council had an opportunity to purchase the remaining property there that was not in city control. That's the One South Genesee former bank, another vacant bank, and has been in the process of getting the final environmental liability protections for the taxpayers, at which point they will own 100% of that lot. And the intention has always been from the time of purchase that we would immediately take that to the market to develop the entire city block. So we do not anticipate or intend that to be open parking.
Yeah, I'm going a different way though. So if I'm concerned about parking here and you're telling me you're going to develop the land right next to it, why should I not be concerned about parking?
Because that development would include built-in a parking structure in there that would have to meet all of those parking needs.
Why should I not be concerned about traffic?
Certainly, we always have the ability to bring back any applicant within that first year, and I think we're even looking to broaden some of that language to provide further remedy for the council and the commission. However, I think that, again, the question is to this commission and the council about, is the parking variance appropriate? Doing that calculation, again, it was a combination of what in the parking table in the back of the zoning ordinance is based on what's the square footage of office space, what is the square footage of the medical dental, appointment based, and then what is the square footage of the assembly rooms. That is how we got to the 139 through their architect, obviously providing those numbers. And then, of course, the downtown allows up to, the downtown allows up to a 25% variance for parking. They have obviously proposed for 80%. If the tenant or the former, if a new tenant of that bank that is closing on Madison and County comes in, they're going to have to justify or prove that they have sufficient parking. Otherwise, this can all be brought back as well.
Okay. If I flip to the conditional use, I'm struggling a little bit with fitting this building fitting in with the comprehensive plan. So you've looked at it longer than I have. Help me understand how it fits in with the comprehensive plan.
And I will defer to the director.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the comprehensive plan obviously cannot, excuse me, anticipate
every single use. At the time the comprehensive plan was done, the building was available. The interest in it was not by the school, it was by other commercial users. And so that was what we anticipated. But as was pointed out earlier by one of you, it may have been Commissioner Anderson, I'm not sure, but having the occupancy, having people in the building is a good thing for the downtown, particularly if their employer is encouraging them to go to the local restaurants and shops. So that is a benefit. People on the street, people spending money in downtown is a very positive thing. By the same token, the property coming off the tax rolls is not ideal. It is a TIF district, and so that damages the TIF district as well. So that's something that the city has faced since the school district acquired the property. But if it's a property that suits their needs, then we understand why it would be attractive to them. So it's not non-compliant with the comprehensive plan, but it's not specifically called out as being compliant either. But the activity in the building is definitely compliant with the comp plan.
Yeah, I guess we have to answer if it's contrary to the objectives. So that's, I guess, what I have to think through. So,
right.
Thanks.
Speaking though to the parking, and that is called out in your staff memo, the idea of shared parking is supported by the comprehensive plan, called out in the comprehensive plan to find ways to not have a bunch of parking lots that are empty for some part of a 24-hour period consistently. So where there can be parking lots that are shared between different uses, particularly if you have a daytime use and a nighttime use, that's ideal. But sharing parking and coming up with creative lease agreements and that kind of thing is definitely a tenet of the comprehensive land use plan.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Now, that old National Bank building is going to be vacated, March 10th, I understand.
Yes, sometime soon, imminent, yes.
And they have a lot of parking there. Has any indication been given as to what the future of that building might be?
My understanding is that there's no known prospective user for that building. So at the time there is one, they would have to demonstrate that they could meet their parking need. If they needed to change their lease in order to contain their own parking and ask the school district to go elsewhere, then the school district would have to come to us and ask for an amendment. You know, if it was a minor thing, if it was a few parking spaces, that might be something that could be approved administratively. Otherwise, it would come back through the approval process as an amendment to the conditional use permit or the parking variance.
Thank you.
So our goal is to make sure that all of the parking requirements for every use are met. So in this particular instance, at the present time, 216 Madison is not using the parking, so it's not a problem for them to give up the space. While the building was occupied for the last many years, they did not use all of the parking. The lower level parking, the street level at Madison Street, was mostly available most of the time. So it's likely that if future uses going in the building are similar to the past uses, that their parking need would also be lower than what the building accommodates.
They have a lot of parking there. Commissioner Griffin.
I think you're going to see a difference with the Carnegie opening, and CLC is going to have a bigger demand with this current structure opening.
Yes, and they are also all required to accommodate their own parking needs. So the Carnegie currently has a lease agreement with CLC to use some of the Sheridan Road garage, which now used to be a city garage. CLC purchased that garage from the city. So that's CLC's garage for their students, staff, and faculty. They are leasing some spaces to the Carnegie for the time being. It'll be a number of years, I don't remember how many, before the Carnegie's complete and open to the public. Were you holding up fingers?
Maybe
a couple
a
of
year
years.
or two.
Yeah, 2 years, presumably. The city's working on other parking arrangements downtown that I can't really get into at this point because they're not ready for prime time. But at the present time, we do have parking lots that are available for the public to use on a daily basis.
come in and pay the meter. There's street parking that's available on a daily basis for visitors to the Carnegie, that kind of thing. CLC students are supposed to be parking in the parking garage.
I'm just saying, there's going to be changes.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's going to be for more, not less.
Right. And so, Thomas mentioned that the city's parking lots are deemed to be future development sites, and that's been the case for a long time. Development on those sites in accordance with the city's master plan design guidelines and comprehensive land use plan will need to accommodate the parking requirements that are demanded by the uses on the site, and we will ask each of those developers to accommodate some public or additional parking as well. So for example, the city's lot at Washington and Sheridan, which is kitty corner from the Carnegie, and also across the street from the Chateau Waukegan, the residential building that doesn't have its own parking. We will work with that developer of that site to accommodate some of the parking needs for both the Carnegie and 10 North Sheridan.
Again, for more, not less.
Right, but presumably in a parking structure underneath the development.
And also, if where the First National Bank was, if somebody's going to come in and put that on the tax rolls, the city's going to be more than happy to give up parking to get something that's going to bring in some revenue.
Absolutely. Our goal is to put that out to the development world as soon as possible.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I'd like to make a comment. I've been driving in Waukegan since 1966, and parking's always been a problem. Scoop the Loop was a deterrent. That was a major drawback, and we also saw Waukegan die because Lakehurst was built because there was more parking. And now we've got another eyesore out there, but it's getting populated now. I think these things work themselves out. If you go to Chicago or Manhattan, you'll see the parking is a problem, a very big problem. There are solutions. There's trolleys. There's public transportation. There's carpooling. And we have to get rid of that entitlement that we have to park exactly in front of the building where we work. The person that should park in front of the building is the people that are going to be the guests there. You're talking about people that are going to have training or services rendered to them there. They should have the first spots. So I guess I'm seeing just the bickering back and forth. I'm sort of embarrassed that the school district is in this discussion because I see a lack of critical thinking a little bit. Maybe I'm just being objective, but I think parking will work itself out. I don't know if we should really be worried about that at this point in time. If we need an agreement to change that a little bit, it could be, is this one time, or is it, if it's set in stone, is it conditional, or?
So the parking requirement is ongoing, so they're proposing currently a 5-year lease arrangement. They will have to keep that updated with the city, how they're meeting the parking requirements. So if this lease goes away, but they have an updated lease with, for example, the county to use their parking garage, then they can just provide that and it will carry over. If at some point they can't meet the parking requirement, then they may have to come back and amend the conditional use permit.
With that lease, do we get revenue from that, the city of Waukegan?
No.
We don't.
We do not. It's not our parking. So their lease arrangement is to pay the property owner to lease spaces in that lot.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, for years, we've been talking about bringing development into downtown Waukegan, bringing people into downtown Waukegan. And people criticize the downtown area, talk about why there's so many vacant storefronts and why don't people want to come to downtown Waukegan. Now we have an opportunity to fill a building, a big piece of property, bring people to downtown Waukegan, something that we've been talking about for years, and now all of a sudden we're going to say, oh, but the parking, oh, but the traffic. You know, it's kind of a silly argument because this is what we want. We want to fill all the spaces in downtown Waukegan. We want to fill all the vacant buildings and all the vacant storefronts. This is a step forward. You know, If people have to park in the city of Waukegan parking lot at Clayton and County and walk a block and a half, you know, to get the building, that's not a huge sacrifice. You know, it's work in downtown Chicago and see how far you have to park from your office. I mean, we have everything right here, you know, within feet, within blocks. And we acted that that's a major reason why we should turn against a project like this. And this is crazy. Anyway, those are my thoughts. So we had the city presentation. Any more questions of city staff? Anybody here in the audience want to raise any questions of city staff? If not, we're going to proceed. We have 2 items that are part of this request, and they are separate items, so we are going to vote on them separately. The first one is item 7E, zoning calendar number 2694, which is a request for variance for parking requirement for a proposed school administration building, education service center, wraparound center, and multipurpose training meeting room at 214 West Washington Street in the downtown Lakefront Overlay District. Do we have a motion?
Was that the 214 or 216?
To recommend approval of
That's 214.
zoning calendar 2694, variance for parking requirement for proposed school administration building, educational service center, wraparound center, and multipurpose training meeting room in the downtown Lakefront Overlay District, and with the conditions.
The conditions are with the next item.
met.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor, but before I ask for a second, Commissioner Bill was asking about whether the address was correct. 214 is the address of the building in question. 216 Madison was the correct address for the parking, the leased parking. Is that correct? Okay.
Okay. Madison?
Yeah, no, so it's 214 Washington.
Okay. For this one, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Motion to recommend approval.
I second it.
Second by Commissioner Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Griffin?
No.
Bill?
Aye.
Anderson?
Yes.
Hintz?
Yes.
Haug?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Haynes?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Next item, item 7F, zoning calendar number 2695, a request for a conditional use permit for a proposed school administration building, education services center, wraparound center, and multipurpose training meeting room at 214 West Washington Street in the downtown Lakefront Overlay District. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion as well for approval of zoning calendar 2695, conditional use permit for a proposed school administration building, education service center, wraparound center, and multipurpose training meeting room in the downtown Lakefront Overlay District.
Subject
And
to?
Subject to the recommendations by planning and zoning staff.
And I'll second it.
Motion to recommend approval, second by Commissioner Rivera. Any further discussion on this motion? Roll call vote, please.
Griffin?
No.
Bill?
Aye.
Anderson?
Yes.
Hintz?
No.
Haug?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Haynes?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Congratulations. Good luck with your project. And the next step is going to be Monday, February 6th at approximately 5 p.m. in this room with the Community Development Committee. Good luck. Okay, moving on to item 8, which is conditional use permit reviews. And this one is for 208 North Genesee Street, a crazy place. Carlos Smith. This was zoning calendar number 2642. Mr. Smith. Okay, are you the only one that's going to be speaking?
Yes, sir. Well,
Or does Mom want to speak?
she might speak.
May
Maybe. Well, you're already sworn in, I believe, right? Okay, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Tell us a little bit about your business. How's it going?
It's going. It's going. It's a very, I've never done anything like this before. It's a very, I want to use the word nuance, but it's a flowing process of finding the promised land of the services that we provide. We provide a lot of different services and a lot of different fun things to do, but nailing it down and getting it narrowed has been a journey. These 6 months has been a journey for me, and I'm learning a lot. So it's been mostly 95% pretty good.
Okay, the reason that we asked you to be here was that the concerns that some of us have had about some of the things that seem to be going on in the downtown area during some of your events, especially on Saturday nights. And I don't know if they're related to your events or what, they just seem awfully coincidental all of a sudden that on certain nights, we have a lot of commotion downtown, a lot of rowdy behavior, a lot of outdoor drinking, fights all the way down to the end of my block. I live at the other end of the block. I live right on Grand and Genesee. And fights and just a lot of scary behavior going on. And just concerned that I don't know if it's just coincidental or if it's related to your business or if it's your business just seems to attract people when you're having something because they know that you're having something. But living on that block, at the other end of the block, sometimes I'm afraid to come out at night. Sometimes there's music outside in cars and trucks that is so loud, you can hear it from blocks away. And they're just right outside your business. And the fights, certain nights there have been fights going on Genesee Street up and down the street. I know there was an incident that I heard of, I didn't actually witness it, of gunshots. And again, I don't know if it's related to your business or just somebody who wanted to come down because he knew that there were people going to be there. But there's just a lot going on that has impacted the quality of life in that block. And I live there on the corner of Grand and Genesee, southwest corner, and also in the apartment building next to it. We have 16 tenants there. And this has turned into a very scary experience for all of us. So this is why. I'm just wondering how you would react to that, how you'd comment on that.
Sure. Let me apologize for that, even the perception to be that that's connected to me. And some of it is, some of those people are my customers, for sure. I think that the vast change in what happened, I'll just keep it 100 with you guys, and that means I'm just going to keep it real. I'll just say it. When we party, it is a different type of vibe. It is something that is up. It's like a turned up energy. It's something that I've been trying to, maybe it's a science to it, I don't know. As far as the gunfire, there's been one incident that was there. We threw a Wisconsin takeover event. Wisconsin came down, lots of people. This young man was looking for some people. He crossed state lines with an automatic weapon and decided to do something really stupid. And obviously, I didn't know him, but police came. I gave him the videos, and from what I'm understanding, he was apprehended from that. But I can take responsibility for that because it happened after I was closed. He was leaving. Well, actually, he didn't even come in. The guy that he was looking for was in my location. The fights, it sucks to say those things happen. That doesn't make it right at all. It doesn't make it justify it at all. I think when people drink liquor and leave out of a club, that those things happen. It's been one fight, and that's been that fight that was video recorded at a crazy, outside in front of a crazy place. So again, those two incidents happened. The music, I can't really, I can't do too much about that. I can go outside and smack some heads, but that probably would start another fight. I've partnered with the police department. They've been there for the last month. They've been after every time we've closed. They've been outside. Everybody just went home peacefully. It's not been any issues at all. They've came, turned the lights on, and everybody leaves. This type of activity, like we said, is an entertainment kind of art district. That doesn't mean that these things are accepted at all. That doesn't mean that I'm not holding myself responsible. My parents, even though they're my parents, I still kind of tell them what to do a little bit. It's a very, like I told you guys, it's a journey for me. I clean that street at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. I have video to prove it, that I've cleaned that street from Grand to Washington, because I don't want to be the reason why the quality of life changes for that. I don't represent that. I've never have.
You're not cleaning in front of my house.
Oh, I'm
All the beer bottles and beer cans and.
No, sir. I mean, I'll show you the video. Maybe it wasn't my event. I don't know, but I'll show you videos of me cleaning the street. Well, I mean, I can't argue with you. You're in a position of power. I could never argue with you in that position. What I will say is that I know that I do my due diligence to try to do my best to raise the quality of what we're doing and not lessen it. So again, my apologies for those things happening. It's not me directly, but it's indirectly happening because that's who's patronizing my business. And I try to hold my customers as accountable as I can on my radio show by reprimanding them, banning people, letting them know to respect the street. We're across the street from a prominent location. I will not be the reason why the quality of what's happening on that block changes. And I'll take the accountability in front of all of you here today. Whatever you want me to do, we'll do.
I'm interested in knowing a little bit more. We saw a report of police calls to the downtown, and it sounds like there have been some interventions since that particular report was distributed to us.
Yes, ma'am.
Which sound, really good. But I think I'd like to see the data prove that things are improving. I'd like to see an upward swing.
Sure.
Less calls, less
Sure.
issues.
Sure. I call for sure. I call the 847 number. I don't call 911 because they told me not to because it goes against me, I guess. So I call the I don't know, I guess it does. But I call the 847 number, the 7 number. They know who I am, and they send the guys right over to de-escalate everybody. It just goes home.
Well, having a police presence there at closing is helpful. But
Yeah.
I'm hoping maybe we can see data again, maybe for the month of January. I think what we saw was the month of October or November. So I hope that's acceptable, but I'd like to see that.
Sure.
I know you mentioned a fight.
You didn't hear it.
I know you mentioned a fight, and I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
Yeah.
But there have been numerous fights reported, and there was one that was not actually a fight. It was a whole bunch of fights. It was like a mob scene out in the street with bunches of people fighting each other. So it wasn't a fight.
Well, that's the only fight that's been reported.
It's the only one you know of.
Well, that's the only fight that I'm standing on 2 feet telling you that's ever happened, ever.
Do you have your own private security?
Yes, sir.
You do? So why don't they get involved when stuff like that happens?
Well, when the fight happened, it honestly was truly a melee. As Chairman says, it was a group of young people who were outside. A group of people met. Actually, keeping it 100, I have to. It was an incident where a young man was murdered, and his family retaliated against another family. So some adults came to Genesee Street to meet these young people that were leaving my space and started to rush them, and that's pretty much what happened. My security, once they clear my location and they clear in front of 208 Genesee, I relieve them of their duties. But that night, this happened a little bit after I was closed, but again, I have to take responsibility for it. My security was pretty much gone by that time.
I guess my only concern is, you're talking about the police coming and turning on the lights and telling me, I don't think our police service is meant to be your security service, and I'm not, my tax dollars shouldn't be being spent for the police
Sure.
to go down there, so.
Sure.
I guess, that's my only concern.
Well-
And I don't know what happens on there. I'm long asleep when stuff like that
No,
happens, so.
absolutely. But this particular event happened, and again, I don't want to ever seem like I'm trying to evade responsibility, because I can't. But this incident did happen after I had closed my doors. The police, it's just like any other entertainment district. As you guys know, most of the conversation around tonight has been around Genesee Street. And not that the police are my personal security, but they do have an obligation to make sure that the street is safe. And that has nothing to do with me directly. That just has to do with the perception and reputation of Genesee Street, which is something I take very personal, which is the reason why I take that extra effort of cleaning that street and things like that, which you will see now that you've said that to me in my face.
I don't expect you to clean
No,
it.
you have. That's what I'm going to do. You just said that. So,
But I also don't expect these people to be hanging out in front of my house and throwing their beer bottles and beer cans on my property either.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And waking us up in the middle of the night, because they don't disperse.
Yeah.
Okay? And the reason that the police have to be there is that these people stick around. They don't disperse.
Sure.
And, you let your security go, your security people, they're not responsible for what happens on the street.
Absolutely.
Okay, they're only responsible for what happens inside your establishment.
Absolutely.
But these people hang around, and then it's up to people to call, to call the police, call 911 when things are happening, and they say it's kind of scary.
Yeah, and that's why I think the collaboration that I've had with the police department in the last month and a half has been awesome. And I'll be honest with you, if you had people outside your house loud in the last month and a half, again, I haven't seen that. I've been on that. Because the police have been coming. When the police come and turn on those lights, everybody just leaves. There's no question about it. There's no one that would be crazy enough to stay outside when the police is outside.
Please come up to the podium.
Since I've been sworn in, and now since that we know these things, right? We're hearing these things. We didn't do like a community poll on, hey, what do you think about a crazy place up and down the blocks? I never even knew it was residential, right? But I do clean up down that block. Maybe not have gone as far as Grand, but I will from this point on. Because as a homeowner, I get on a dollar store by my home with the garbage and the boxes and things like that. So I can imagine music, entertainment, clubbing, partying, or whatever at the 10, 11 o'clock. That will irk my nerve too. So we'll get better at that. In regards to the police, to your point, they are not personal security. They are Waukegan Police Department. So they drive by up and down the Genesee when there's shows there. Why not do it down a little further, Genesee Street, at a crazy place? The climate is changing everywhere. We're not there to have a bunch of people inside the spot to commit violence or have fights. It's the energy they bring to the crazy place. So we're toned that down. We've toned that down. We are picking and choosing who we want to come into a crazy place. Because what they're not going to do, they're not going to give us a black eye. And we will do better at a crazy place alongside my son.
There were some conditions with the conditional use permit, and item number 5 says that the facility may not host events open to public requiring payment to enter at the door more frequently than 2 times per month. Is that being observed?
Yes. So when the text amendment was written, the first, well, I guess the first time we wrote it, it didn't have that condition in it, honestly. And that's not a shade or a shot at zoning, planning and zoning. That's just that I didn't agree to that when we first did the text amendment, but we had a meeting and we clarified that that is something that I would do. If any cover charged events, I would have to send the flyer to a city employee. In that, when we first began that process, I would send those flyers to Steve. The more the business got hectic, the less I sent those flyers over to Steve to let him know those true cover charged events. And that was the only way that Noel and Tom were able to kind of metrically, if I'll use that word, figure out what events I was doing that were being covered. So I dropped the ball in maybe the last 30 days, last 40 days on sending those flyers for those true cover charged events. But we have been standing on those two cover charged events. And Noel helped me understand that admissions to come into a crazy place and a cover charged are totally different, because I charge a tax for admission, and then for cover charge, I don't charge a tax for those.
You charge
those
a
events.
tax?
Well, yes, I pay a sales tax for admission for people to come into a crazy place. If they wanted to use our selfie rooms, they pay $20, $15. It's a sales tax attached to that. But if it's a more of a night type event, then that's just a cover charge, and it's not.
Okay, so then they could come in to your event and pay to use a selfie room, but then participate in your event that's going on?
No, because it wouldn't be an event happening at the same time. It's just regular, the operations would just be open, and they'd bring their kids to take pictures, and they would just pay that fee to take pictures in a selfie room.
And I didn't read the next line of that item 5. It says hosting such events in excess of that number, that's 2 cover charge events per month, will result in the classification of the facility as an unpermitted, non-conforming nightclub under the zoning ordinance. So that's what I was getting at.
Sure.
Because, and I mean, I don't know all the technical ramifications, ins and outs and all that. All I know is it sure looks like a nightclub.
Sure.
When I pass by there, when you have an event going on, it sure looks like a nightclub.
Yeah, I mean, the perception could be that, but that's just not the way we operate. I've had families drive in from all over the state to come and just take pictures. On the nights that are bigger nights, it probably looks like a nightclub. If I have a private event and it's 100 people there, it'll look like it looks like a nightclub, but there's no cover charge. Everybody walked in free. It was a private event for grandma. It could look like a nightclub.
You know, I've been involved with various committees and commissions in the city of Waukegan for a number of years, a lot of years. And I'm always looking to see businesses come into Waukegan, especially downtown Waukegan, and thrive and survive. That's something I've been working for a long time. And I want to see Waukegan thrive. I want to see downtown thrive. I want to see it do well. And I was so happy to see that the Genesee Theater has brought so much activity into downtown. And I'm just happy to see positive things happening. But honestly, when you're having an event, the atmosphere down there is not positive. The atmosphere down there is scary. I've had people tell me they're not going to come to Genesee Theater anymore because they're afraid. They're hearing about the things that are happening on the street.
Well, I mean, Chairman, excuse me, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, and so that kind of concerns me, because we're working so hard to try to develop downtown, and, you know, we want an arts district.
Sure.
The Genesee Theater is a big part of that, and I'm just concerned that the things that are happening, if they're not brought under control, are going to once again reinforce that perception of Waukegan as being unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying so hard, we're working so hard to get people to give up that perception and see us as being I've lived in downtown Waukegan for 32 years. It'll be 33 years this year. Mm-hmm. I've never been afraid to go out of my house at night. Never. Mm-hmm. Until you moved in.
I think
and
it's...
then all of a sudden, the street, I come out on a Saturday night, I'm afraid to go out of my house.
I think it's a bit dangerous, the language you're using, quite most respectfully, only because you haven't been inside of my business. I think that the tough part about even publicly saying these things is a bit hurtful. Only because
I don't mean to be hurtful.
It's okay, though.
I really don't.
It's fine. Your perception matters because you're a resident of the street, and you obviously are a resident of the city, and you obviously are in a position as a chairman of this commission. But I think that when we use our language, it's important to note if we haven't used our energy to help those businesses at the same rate that we ridicule them, That's a little bit dangerous for me. I would love to see any and everyone come and patronize my business to take pictures with your children, do a video drop, whatever, come on my Crazy Riot show, which I've hosted, the governor, to the mayor of this city, to the mayor of every city in this region. I would encourage you to come take a look inside of it, because I don't think you've ever been inside my space. I think perception matters, and I don't want to discount that. We live in a world of social media, so perception matters. If someone gets shot outside of a business, of course that's going to carry volume because it's negative. But how much are we collectively going to help that young man in his first business, pick him up and say, what do you need? How can we help you? Because I haven't gotten that from most of the people that work in this building, and I'm not taking a shot because it's my business, it's my responsibility. But I do want to say that the language you just used here publicly was more hurtful than to help me with the perception of what I'm trying to do.
And I don't mean to be hurtful. I want to see you succeed.
Yes, sir.
And I just think that some things probably need to be changed to bring the situation under control.
Sure. I'm open. I'm 100,000% open to that. Anybody can tell you if I've called Noel, I've called Tom millions of times. What do I need? I've called George. What do I need? What should I do? For this meeting to happen publicly, and for those words to be used publicly was a little bit alarming for me without a private conversation saying, hey, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what we need to do. And then, as the other commissioner said, see the metrics change. And if they haven't changed, then you come down on me publicly to say, look, do this. Remember, we told you to do this. Because some of those things I can't control. But I will take responsibility as much as I can.
Yes, please. Yes, you are, of course. And I would like to swear you in also. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
For those, I think all of you know, I'm Alderman Florian. So I admit our code of ordinance is very difficult to understand. I'm sure finding things is difficult. I've been an alderman 3.5 years. I still struggle sometimes. But this is taken from the liquor ordinance, so not the zoning, but the liquor, which Mr. Carlos has a liquor license. So each licensee shall have the duty to maintain a peaceful and orderly premises. This is referred to as the maintenance of order standard. This shall be accomplished by establishing and maintaining the optimum precaution and actions that are practical to deter and prevent fighting, including without limitation, hiring extra security, and providing routine training to servers and security personnel on deterring and preventing fights. The duty to prevent fighting shall be accomplished both to precautionary and training matters and to the steps taken once the fight breaks out. In determining whether a violation of this section has occurred, the local liquor control commissioner may consider among following matters: prior incidents, when the fighting participants were impaired, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is when you have a liquor license, you're held to a higher standard for some things. And above this, it talks about how a sound shouldn't be heard outside the bounds of your structure. I think you mentioned that there's music you can hear down the street. And so what I'm trying to get at here is we need to make sure people understand when they have this kind of a business, especially in an area where people are living. You know, I heard him say he didn't know there were people living there. We want to encourage people to live downtown. We've talked about trying to build condominiums down here forever, right? So I think, I know when we were presented with this first, I felt like we were being presented with something that was going to be more family-oriented. I heard him refer to it as a club now. We didn't hear that, I don't think, when it was first presented to us.
No, I didn't refer to it.
You did. You said the word club.
I said it looks like. He said it looks like. I said it would. It would look like.
The way it's decorum is his design, his desire for lights and the blinks for events that people do and want to pay for to have a certain amount of hours. So it can get that feeling.
Right. Well, and appears from the outside, I think, that it's a club. Yeah. Well, I think it does to all of us, to what's going on. So anyway, I'm just concerned that we need to make sure, and maybe Marcus can give us some direction on this going forward, of how we contain some of this and allow this business to prosper, but yet not deter from what we want to see happen downtown. So.
Thank you, Alderman Florian. I don't know if I'm qualified to advise a business on how it can keep some of the goings on that's been described down. What I've seen is maybe a partnership or some sort of communication with police. And I know you mentioned that you've been doing that. You've been calling various aspects of the city. The only thing, and I don't know to what extent you have done this. I don't know if doing it more often would be helpful. But to the extent that you could reach out to, I guess, the police force. I've seen various, DC Neal was very helpful in getting some of the, I don't want to call it bad actors, but some of the rowdier elements, giving them very helpful advice. Helpful as it sounds to me. I don't know if they took his advice to heart and did it. It's just too new in those particular cases. But the only thing I would suggest is a communication in that regard with police.
Sure. Just to add to Alderman, just to respond to Alderman, to the Alderwoman, excuse me. I designed a building to be it's a very cutting edge space to be in, and it's a very I grew up in the industry of bar and bar mitzvahs. This is what I did my whole career. Lights and flashing TVs and floors and all this. My place is designed after the profession I've been in most of my life. As I said to the Planning and Zoning Committee in the beginning, where they said, well, it sounds like you're doing a club. And I said, well, I'm not. And then they said, well, it sounds like maybe you want to do banquet. And I said, well, I just don't want to do that either. I want to do all of them at the same time, which is the reason why the text amendment was created. And in that, I am 100% open to altering that in whatever ways we need to make it work. But I want to be clear that on paper, these operational things that's happening were approved to do, whether it was 2 times or 1 time, they were approved to actually happen. And again, I have to do a better job at controlling what's happening. But I also want the leverage and latitude from you guys to know that I individually can't control everything that happens on the street, just like the owners of every space on the street can't. 6 months in, I'm going to stand on the language that you used in 6 months. That's tough to hear, as I admitted to you that this is a journey for me, and assistance and encouragement. I may be the youngest person in Waukegan with a liquor license. I may be. I know that I'm one of them. And to the Alderwoman's point, please hold me to a standard, because I hope that I'm holding myself to one in front of you today that is of utmost respect, I hope. I'm not running or ducking from any responsibility, and I don't want to. I would never do that. So I teach kids every day. I would never do that publicly, of course. But I will stand on inviting you to please come in and check it out before we use the type of language you just used here tonight, Chair.
Language telling you that I was afraid to go out of my house? That's the language you're talking about?
I think that, hold on.
Yes.
I think that, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying give me a chance to see what it is versus the perception. Because the perception is the fight's outside, and that fight that happened is me. Like you're saying that, you're connecting that to me holistically by saying that didn't happen till I got there. I know for a fact that that's just not true. But I can't debate that with you on this front. I will not. But when you associate that indictment against me individually, because you pointed at me, I would like to give you a chance to experience what I opened more so than the language. That's why I keep bringing that up. I want to give you the chance to experience what it is, mostly.
Can we sort
Please,
of resume this conversation maybe after we have some data? I mean, maybe we'll ask you to come back, but I'd like to see the data. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, quick
Yes,
question. I'd like to see the data too. And I think you seem like a super good dude and up here transparent. Dude's the wrong word. That's not very.
No, you're good.
Are you happy with how it's going outside? Like, is this a surprise to you to get that feedback or no? Okay.
No, absolutely not.
And maybe just briefly, so I think I didn't hear very clearly from you what you've done to change over the last month. So if we're going to go see a change, help me with a couple things that you've done, because I think that'll help me understand.
Sure. I only did one thing, and that was just contact the police.
Okay.
That was the only thing I did.
Do you think that's enough? So
That's it. I can guarantee you right now that that's it.
Okay.
The time that these incidents happened, the police were not, I didn't call that 847 number. I didn't even know about it. The incident that happened caused for that to happen as a recourse, because I didn't know that was available. I thought I had to call 911, which isn't true. The guys just come regularly. They come in, they do a walkthrough every Saturday night that I do an event. The police does a walkthrough. They shake my hand. They may take some egg rolls for lunch. That's it. And ever since that's happened for the last maybe a month and a half, it's been nothing. I've never had an incident inside of my space. Never, ever.
I think so you understand what we saw. Like, I saw 4 pages of police calls, and they weren't all full. And when I went through them, I'll say that some of them maybe were clearly linked to downtown, and some of them were a little looser. But I think, so you understand like where some of the perception comes, because to be honest, I haven't been to your place, and I haven't come downtown to react. But it is a little concerning as a citizen to get a 4-page report of police calls, right? So I think that's, you've given me some comfort here, but I mean, I just want it to go both ways a little bit. I'm listening to you, listen to us too. So.
And my last thing I'll say this, and I know everybody got to go, we've been here for a long time.
Yeah, us too.
Facts only. I think that the district of what's happening is it will cause more police calls without it being anything that happens. I think that when you have residents that live above these areas, Ibiza's open, they're open. You got a new lounge about to open within the next 3 months, the Dream Lounge, and they're awesome, good people, but they're about to open as well. We never know what's going to happen when the climate changes overall. So it may be more police calls, so that the metric changes overall, basically. And I will hold myself to another.
I got you. Fair or not, like being the first you might have to take some additional responsibility, right? And I'm not saying you're not taking responsibility at all, but you got me. Okay, I'm good. Thanks.
Mr. Smith, I want to thank you for coming down here to meet with us.
Yes, sir.
And I just want to say, when you made the original request, I was very impressed. You had a lot of people that came down and spoke very positively about you, and just talked to some of these people. Had very good reports about you and your history in Waukegan and your reputation and all that. So I was left with a very positive image of you, okay? Nothing that's happened has caused that to change, okay? I still, and just the way that you have conducted yourself today and the way that you've met with us and responded to our questions, I appreciate it, okay? Yes, you're here, you're not dodging your responsibility, you're answering the questions that we're asking of you, and so I want to see you succeed.
Yes, sir.
You had an idea that I thought was a little crazy, okay?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a good thing for downtown. I don't know, but whatever these extraneous things are, these related situations are that are taking place that seem to happen when you're having events, somehow we've got to get a handle on this.
Absolutely.
because it is, I mean, you're inside your place, I'm in my house, and you just don't realize what we're witnessing, okay? And it's a little scary, and I don't want to be afraid to walk out of my house on a Saturday night,
Got you.
okay? So good luck, keep up the good work, keep working to make things safer and better. I wish you a lot of success, and I'm sure we're going to continue this conversation at a later date.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Mom.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And is there anything else that we have to discuss before we adjourn? Oh, I think we do. Okay. Of course.
Just one super quick thing. We're having this amazing way of making the first Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for new staff some of our longest nights. So I would like to introduce you to our newest staff member, Rachel Canton.
Hey, Rachel.
She's an assistant planner. She joined our team last week.
Brand new.
Next week, we have Sam joining us, so you'll meet him next meeting. So new planning and zoning team, fresh young faces, brilliant minds. I'm very impressed with them, and they're all doing a great job.
Yes. And we had to expose our newest commissioner to our longest meeting of the last 3 or 4 years, right? Yes. I just want to let you know that they don't usually go this long. Usually we're in and out in about an hour or less, sometimes 15 or 20 minutes. Oh, wow. This was just a very full agenda with a lot of discussion. But what we want to do, break you in real quickly, real quickly.
And it'll seem like a smooth ride from here on out.
Right, it'll be easy from this point on. So thank you all for coming. I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Commissioner Rivera, second by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.